All right, we're back. Tasty Crypto Show. I'm Ryan Grace. And with me today, Dan, Cecilia, and special guest Cole Kennelly from Volmex. No stranger to the show. Cole, good to have you back on. How are you doing, my friend?
Hey, Ryan. Hey, Dan. Great to be here. Excited to be back. Looking forward to talking today.
Absolutely. You're here. So, of course, we're going to talk crypto markets. We're going to talk crypto market volatility. If anybody has a question for Cole or for us, I suppose, get your ass over to YouTube, pop out the chat, and type something in there. If we have any questions, we'll take questions, I suppose. But happy Monday. Hope you guys had a good weekend. Cole, to kick things off, for anybody that didn't catch you guys on the show last time, you're the founder of Volmex. Can you talk a little bit about how you got here? Maybe hit on your background for a second. And what is Volmex? I think what you guys are doing is awesome, but would love to hear it from you.
Thanks, Ryan. So I'm Cole. I'm the founder in Volmex. At Volmex, we built the leading Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana implied volatility indices. So we have the leading vol index franchise in crypto. We have a number of different integrations with TradingView, CoinMarketCap, Bitfinex, GTrade, Gains, and have kind of achieved this ubiquity around this vol index standard in the crypto market. We also have a family of rates indices called the Volmex Prime Rate Index family, where we track different rates metrics across crypto market, like funding rates and on-chain lending and borrowing rates. So I've been following the U.S. equity options market my entire life. My dad has spent about 40 years working at a couple of different U.S. equity options exchanges. And so, I got into crypto long time ago. I've been working in crypto startups for about 6.5 years. So I was an early employee at a staking company, which was acquired by Kraken in 2021. And so I'd worked there for a couple of years. And when I was there, I was trading, options and vol products in my PA. And I was really surprised that there was no sort of VIX standard. Around the same time, I was also experimenting a lot with DeFi. And so I kind of had this vision to build basically a DeFi version of the VIX for Bitcoin. And that's kind of the precipice for Volmex. So yeah, really excited about, where we're at today. We have a lot of different integrations in market, as mentioned. And, we're kind of at this inflection point around this Bitcoin volatility index and, achieving a real ubiquity and sort of omnipresence around it.
Awesome. And I think if anybody wants to check this out, we can throw it up here on the screen as well. We've got volmex.finance is the URL here. We've got your site up here. I don't know if there's anywhere you want us to bounce to on the platform, Cole, or anywhere you want us to go with the charts. Happy to pull those up. But maybe just to start off, when you look at what's going on in the market right now, you've got Bitcoin kind of flirting with all-time highs, has shown some resiliency here in the face of geopolitical risk, and clearly is well within the bull market. But volatility is at, last time I checked, a one-year low here, both realized and implied. What do you make of the lower volatility environment that we're in? What do you think is driving that? And then maybe what trade ideas or kind of opportunities do you see as a result of that low vol environment?
Yeah, so, it's a really interesting time in crypto. Bitcoin's hovering around 107, 108, around all-time highs. But we've sort of been a little bit range bound the last couple of weeks. And so I think that the advent of some of these Bitcoin strategy companies, Bitcoin treasury companies like Metaplanet, and several others, number of others, utilizing option strategies has taken a little bit of the juice out of the market. And so I think that has definitely played a role. MicroStrategy, Metaplanet, others utilizing various option structures, selling options has, sort of tapered vol down. I also think that the advent of IBIT options and the introduction of structured products in the U.S. Institutional market, I think, has definitely had an impact on vol as well. And so between Bitcoin treasury companies, structured product creation and growth in the U.S., I think that these things have definitely, tampered vol. I would say that it's really interesting where the spread between the BVIV and EVIV indices are. For anyone unfamiliar, BVIV is a 30-day implied Bitcoin volatility index, and EVIV is the 30-day implied Ethereum volatility index. Basically, this is kind of at like an all-time high, as we've been printing these indices for about 3 years now. When the Bitcoin ETFs launched, the BVIV, was actually inverted EVIV for a little while. The introduction of Ethereum ETFs and then Ethereum options sort of, brought that spread back to like 10. Now it's around 25 or 30. And so perhaps there's a, besides just betting on, vol to sort of mean revert to, sort of like the average, over the mean over the last couple of years, I think that, playing some mean reversion around BVIV and EVIV spread could be really interesting as, 30, 25 is a bit of an outlier. And so really interesting time in the crypto market. I think, just today, there's, Robinhood getting in the market in a big way with their L2. You have, BlackRock, Fidelity, firing on many, on all cylinders. And I think it's a really exciting time in the crypto market. There's a lot of institutional interest, fervor, and, feels like Bitcoin is due for sort of a leg up. And so we'll have to see. I think that if Bitcoin goes to 130, 150K, you could see some positive spot vol correlation where, BVIV and Bitcoin become kind of correlated as Bitcoin gets bid up, options get bid up, vol's increasing. And so perhaps we see some positive spot vol correlation when Bitcoin inevitably makes that move up to, 130, 150, let's call it.
Yeah. On that note, is there any catalysts or events on the horizon that you see kind of causing Bitcoin to maybe go up to that range, or even on the EVIV side, like Ethereum, is there something where you see that spread tightening and coming back more in line with where it's normally been?
So I think it's, the fundamentals generally are quite strong. There's been many tens of billions of inflows into the, Bitcoin ETF market. Now, ETH ETFs are gaining adoption. You have things like Solana ETFs with staking coming soon. And so I think that just increased, growth in the sort of institutional products and, fundamentals, sort of just continuing to improve. I think that, we could see, Bitcoin just naturally sort of bid to 130, 150. I think the introduction of more sovereigns getting in the market. I think El Salvador in last cycle showed there is interest from sovereigns and buying Bitcoin on the corporate sovereign balance sheet. I think that more nations might start to do that as they do with gold, and so that could create sort of a flywheel of different countries, different sovereigns buying Bitcoin as some sort of reserve asset. And so I think that's quite interesting. And then obviously like the biggest companies in the world getting involved with Bitcoin, maybe on like a treasury level, maybe on the stablecoin level. It's been interesting to see like Stripe and Robinhood go deeper in crypto. I think we'll see more of that from the JP Morgans, the Amazons, the biggest companies and corporates in the world. And so really interesting time in crypto. I think that fundamentals are very strong, and who knows what's ahead.
Yeah, from everything that you see, it would appear that there's quietly this race to accumulate that's underway by bigger and bigger players that enter this market as it grows. Cole, you talked about the correlation maybe shifting back in terms of spot and volatility. Do you guys have a way to measure that here through Volmex? I think I was poking around on the charts earlier and I thought I saw something, but I can pull it up if you guys have something.
Yeah, so something we measure is the correlation between Bitcoin returns and Bitcoin volatility returns, and ETH returns and EVIV returns. So we've actually created a series of indices called BV Core, EV Core, which basically measure exactly this: the return between Bitcoin over some time period and BVIV. And so when the market is fearful, this becomes very negative. As does the VIX index, right? When the stock market crashes, the VIX spikes. You typically find a similar thing in the Bitcoin market. BVIV spikes when Bitcoin market is fearful. It's measuring sort of the risk in the market, right? What's very interesting about crypto is that, I was kind of mentioning before, when the Bitcoin market gets very greedy and bullish, you can observe that Bitcoin price is increasing. Options are increasing, and then vol is increasing, and so you can kind of observe this positive spot vol correlation anomaly, which you don't really see in the U.S. equities market. And so you can find this sort of anomaly in different risk assets like levered ETFs and such. And so the BV Core, EV Core family, spot vol correlation indices is a great, metric and indicator to kind of track this negative, correlation, positive correlation between Bitcoin and BVIV or Ethereum and EVIV. So pay attention to that. As the market becomes more bullish, I do expect that we'll see some positive spot vol correlation, and vol will be rising with the price of Bitcoin.
We have it up here on the screen. I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but we have the BV Core indices here. Do you have a preferred time frame that you like to use to analyze this or to measure it?
I think they're all pretty relevant.
Okay.
Maybe the 1 month is always a good, tenor, or 2 weeks. We can definitely link some of these in the, YouTube show notes and stuff for the users and answer any questions. But I think that 1 month would be great, or, 2 weeks perhaps.
Awesome. Yeah, I've pulled this up, and we're looking at the daily here going back to about mid-January or so. And you can see exactly what you're talking about, right? You look at the rally that we had in May off of those April lows. I think we went from about 75 to 110 or so before pulling back. And that positive correlation between spot and vol just screamed higher from, a slight negative correlation, if any correlation, all the way up to, it looks like spot 40 at that point in time when we look at the 1 month here. So definitely a great indicator to keep your eye on through Volmex.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, we think this was really useful for traders and investors. Retail, pro-tail institutions can all leverage this type of product index for their analysis. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, no, I really we really love looking at this stuff. Like, it's very relevant to our traders here, especially on the crypto side, because as there's not very many volatility products out there or ways to measure this. So I'm wondering on your end, since you guys are kind of expanding some of the indicators and some of the indices, is there any other tokens that you're constructing these volatility indices for? Is there anything interesting that stands out when you're looking at some of these altcoins?
Great question. So we have an SVIV index for Solana. And so, zooming out, Volmex is kind of constrained to implied volatility indices, creating implied volatility indices around assets that have liquid exchange tradable options markets. And so, the crypto market structure, you have Bitcoin, Ethereum. There's a pretty big drop off after those two major assets. Solana is kind of the next biggest asset that has critical mass in the derivatives market. Deribit has listed XRP, and so we plan to roll out an XRP implied vol index, which if you look around, you might be able to find that, teasing some alpha for listeners. And then there's a couple of other assets that have liquid, pretty deep and robust options markets, XRP. And so, really it's BVIV, EVIV, SVIV, which are kind of the flagship implied vol indices. We plan to roll out XVIV for Ripple and XRP, and then we'd obviously like to do it for as many assets as possible. Something we're really excited about is the advent of the future, coming of a proper top 10 or top 15, maybe top 7 index, which has options on it, right? Because then we could really easily construct like a top 7 vol index, which is sort of missing in the market right now. And so, it's really interesting. There's sort of no canonical standard for a broad-based sort of top 7, top 10 index. And so there's a CD20 by CoinDesk and Coinbase 50, which are potentially synergistic initiatives to what we're doing at Volmex. If we can get options on those, we could price a top 50 or a top 20, implied vol index. And so looking forward to that. I think it's really exciting what could be done. There's a couple of other assets. I mean, Deribit has PAXG, which I don't think there's enough liquidity per the last we looked at it to create implied vol products on indices on that type of product. But we definitely would love to support as many coins and tokens as possible. But there's definitely the most interest in BVIV, right? Our Bitcoin 30-day implied vol index. One note, we do have an entire term structure, right? So we have BVIV 7-day, BVIV 1-day, BVIV 14-day, 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, 120, 180, or those might be in staging still. But we have all entire tenors, various tenors of BVIV, and so you can sort of look at the vol, term structure and see like where things are at. And so I believe if you, Brian, if you search BVIV and then scroll down on the page, you'll be able to see that that term structure.
Yeah, we've got BVIP here on the screen. I've got a current price of 39.77. And what I love about this as well is you've got the IV rank, same way that we tend to approach it here on Tasty Live. You've got the percentile as well. So everybody can see that we're at very, very low levels of volatility. And I'm assuming this is maybe a 1 year time frame you're looking at, but you'll see the same thing on a 3 month, a 6 month basis. Vol is very low. And as we scroll to the bottom of the screen, here's that term structure that Cole is talking about. You can see where we were in terms of implied volatility 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, and where that is currently. And gives you a sense of just really how flat that curve has become over time. I mean, in my opinion, obviously, cheap vol can get cheaper, but if you believe that we are going to see a move higher, there's fundamental reasons to believe that Bitcoin can get to those levels you mentioned, 130, 150, whatever it might be. There might be an opportunity here to buy some longer dated kind of upside optionality through call options, buy that upside tail risk, because arguably it can get cheaper, but it's pretty cheap right now versus where it has traded in the past.
Well said, Ryan. I mean, could be a good entry for, different option structures, vol cheap, of low, meaning, it's, less costly to enter those type positions. And so very interesting where we're at right now.
Yeah, we've been doing a bit of that on the show, just trying to buy some, 95 strike calls, 5-10 delta calls, kind of taking a flyer here on some upside in IBIT. Not so much based off the idea that you're going to see the price double or go up 50% in the next couple of months, but just simply that your option on a per strike basis, which is trading at a, say, 45, 50 IV, maybe that gets back to 70 on that delta move. And you do see, a nice increase or profit as a result of just owning a bunch of those upside call options. We'll see. But again, when you look at it from this lens here and you go back to what we're showing here on the Volmex dashboard, where the IV rank is 2.5, percentile is 0.29. I mean, you are at the cheapest levels that we've seen. And I'm assuming, is this a 1 year scale that you're looking at?
Precisely. It's a 52-week high and low. So
Okay.
basically we're at the lowest range of the lowest end of the range. Vol has sort of never been lower over the last 52 weeks. And so, we could see some move to the upside based on that, or whether it's negative or positive move, right? I mean, you could see sort of negative spot vol correlation if the market moves down a lot, which, obviously a lot of people are bullish right now. Personally, I don't think that's as likely, not financial advice. But then if the market moves up, you could see some, positive spot vol correlation. And so could be a pretty attractive bet to, long some vol or long some options and inherently long some vol. Talking my book, though, I mean, I want to see more trading, and
Me too. Me
we're
too,
all
my
options
friend.
guys.
On that note, on the trading note, you recently launched the BVIV index on Gains, right? And Bitfinex, it's available on Bitfinex, but you recently launched the tradable indice on a platform called Gains Network. Could you take us through that a little bit, like how that works? And I could have Ryan pull it up, but just want to discuss that because these indexes are tradable if you're, in DeFi.
Yeah, sounds great. So I can send you the link, Ryan, if you want to pull it up. That's helpful.
Yeah, I think I've got the Bitfinex derivatives, and this isn't going to be accessible to everybody. If you're watching the show in the U.S., probably harder to access this market, but this will give you a sense of maybe what's coming soon globally, but how you can trade the actual index in the same way that you could trade VIX futures or buy options on the VIX.
Yeah, so BVIV is an indicator, right? You can use it to understand expected risk, expected volatility, expected moves in the crypto market, but it's also a tradable product. BVIV is very versatile. And so, in the crypto market, in the equity market, obviously there's a entire complex of futures, options, ETPs, ETFs, OTC products that all make VIX tradable. Our vision is really for that, very similar complex of futures, options, tokenized products, what have you, to make BVIV tradable. And so today we have 2 perpetual future offerings that we've partnered on that make BVIV tradable. We have Bitfinex, which is a sister company of Tether, which is really exciting because, sort of buy-in from the Tether cabal, into our product, which is great. And then we've also recently launched a collaboration with Gains or G-Trade, which is a decentralized exchange that trades on Arbitrum and Base for the last couple of years. And so just last week we announced a collaboration with G-Trade. Basically, we pipe our data into the G-Trade perpetual futures exchange, and they make BVIV and EVIV tradable through their exchange, which is based on smart contracts on both the Base and Arbitrum networks. And so we've seen about 1.25 million US notional traded over the last of contracts traded over the last 6 days or so. And so I think it's been a major success. There's been a lot of exchanges reaching out to us about doing something similar. And so, we do have a pipeline of various different exchanges that, want to list BVIV across CeFi and DeFi. And so really we're building this ubiquitous, vol index standard for Bitcoin where you can find BVIV on, Bitfinex and CeFi, Gains, and soon other dexes, in the DeFi world, and ultimately want BVIV to be on every major exchange. And so, if you'd like to hedge with this type of product, with the, negative correlation once, BVIV, spikes during a sort of negative, bearish price action, or, bet on the positive spot vol correlation or bet on mean reversion speculation. This is a pure volatility product that allows you to express a view on implied vol without managing a multi-legged option structure. And so this is actually a major unlock for the crypto market, where for the first time ever, you can just buy one single contract with a couple of clicks, or really one click, and have exposure to pure implied vol, which previously wasn't really possible. And so really excited about the progress with the G-Trade. There's going to be a bunch of other exchanges that list BVIV, and so super excited to share those with everybody.
Starting with BVIV, do you see an opportunity for tradable products around EVIV, the Solana Volatility Index, XRP eventually, and others? Do you think that's what's next?
So BVIV and EVIV are both tradable on Bitfinex and Gains. Maybe I wasn't clear. We definitely want to see more implied vol indices tradable on our different partner exchanges. And so perhaps SVIV will be tradable on-chain on Solana at some point, or just BVIV generally. And so, yeah, super excited about bringing BVIV and EVIV to more exchanges across CeFi and DeFi, and also making some of our other indices tradable. Perhaps this is a good segue into, the Volmex rates indices, which we rolled out a couple of months ago and track different metrics, like funding rates and, on-chain borrowing and lending rates. Basically we saw, in the equity market, there's obviously SOFR and LIBOR, which have become very, LIBOR no longer, but SOFR has become sort of the standard for, pricing credit, lending rates. And so we sort of noticed that there was no such standard in crypto, and built this family of indices called the Volmex prime rate indices. And basically we have a vision to, build a standard for interest rates with the Bitcoin volatility, a Bitcoin prime rate index, which we've created, Bitcoin Volmex prime rate, and eventually make those tradable. And so I definitely think that some of the exchanges we're on already, and some of the exchanges in the pipeline, would like to list the rates indices that we've built. And so we'd like to see many more Volmex indices trading in both CeFi and DeFi.
Awesome. Yeah, we have those prime rate indices up here as well. And then I guess out of curiosity, is this something where you might see the market extended one way or the other? Let's just say that it's very expensive to finance a perp position. That could be a signal that you would look for in terms of a short-term reversal, or if you wanted to trade this, if it was a tradable product, you could short that rate. Is that how you might think about it?
Yeah. So I think as the market becomes more bullish, the demand for leverage increases, and you should see that reflected in some of these Volmex prime rate indexes. The DeFi lending rate specifically measures the cost to borrow stable coins against your Bitcoin on venues like Aave, Morpho, and Compound. And so the demand for borrowing, increases as the crypto market becomes more and more bullish. And so you can also observe something similar with funding rates, to get levered long via a PERT position. And so I think that you could sort of trade that sentiment via these rates products. And so we think it's a really powerful primitive. It's really surprising that there's not more adoption, not for these products specifically, but just broader rates trading in crypto. I think that perhaps after the 2022 some of the stuff that happened in 2022 with folks like Genesis and BlockFi, the crypto credit market kind of dried up a little bit. I think as that comes back with the introduction of institutional players, we'll see a lot more people and firms and pro-tail, retail, institutional want to trade this type of product. And so very bullish on the prospect of rates trading as of course vol trading in crypto. So yeah, definitely you can observe like sentiment being reflected in this type of product.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think the one other thing I'll mention too for everybody that's following along here with us, we a couple times a week put out an email and a data dashboard, and we'll construct one standard deviation expected moves based on the volatility. So we just take the spot price, take the current implied vol for Bitcoin or for ETH using some of these numbers here. You could use the 30-day index if you want to. That's what we typically will use, and that can be a great way, I think, to kind of come up with realistic expectations for a trading range. You can use the input here from Volmex, use the spot price, and you can calculate that one standard deviation move. So you get a sense of what's realistic, right? Everybody thinks that Bitcoin can go up $50,000, but over the next month, what is the option market actually pricing in? Is it a $5,000 move on a weekly basis? Is it a $10,000 move? You can start to understand what different vol inputs ultimately look like in that calculation. And so this is a great resource for some of that if anybody's curious as to how we calculate those ranges.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Ryan. And we'll have to add some of these indices into the newsletter going forward because I think it is a good complement to our dashboards. Real quick, Cole, because we got about a minute or so left. I have a question from the chat, which I thought was interesting. They asked how you will compete, Volmex will compete or work with CBOE and CME when they inevitably start getting into these type of things.
Yeah, so the U.S. capital markets are the deepest and liquid and the most liquid in the entire world. We are very excited to build products that are, regulated and tradable in the U.S. market. And so we have a couple of initiatives behind the scenes where we're working on, bringing, regulated data into a new family of indices and creating, some of these type of products. And so potentially, those type of firms could be partners to Volmex or their peers. And so we definitely would love to, integrate with the biggest exchanges in the world, which sit, in the U.S. typically, and offer these products to U.S. retail. And so super excited about that. I think, the Bitcoin ETF market and the options on those markets is a perfect backdrop for those type of products, and should make for a great foundation for U.S. tradable products for vol and otherwise. And so that's a great question, and we're definitely really excited to enter the U.S. market. Obviously, the perpetual products are generally available outside the U.S. right now, but that's definitely on the roadmap.
Well, Cole, that's going to do it for our show. Sadly, we've run out of time. I'm sure we could talk to you for many more hours here, but excited to see what you guys do next with Volmex. If anyone is interested in checking out what you're doing today, volmex.finance. And if they want to hear more from you, where can they find you, whether it's on X or anywhere else? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
So follow Volmex on Twitter, VOLMEX Finance on Twitter. You can follow me as well, Cole Got Tweets. Check out our charts, charts.volmex finance. Check out our website, volmex.finance. add BVIV, EVIV, SVIV to your TradingView watch list. If you search for Bitcoin implied, Ethereum implied, Solana implied, we're the top result. We're also in the CoinMarketCap mobile app. And then if you'd like to express a view on BVIV, EVIV, you can do that via Bitfinex, Gains, and soon more. And so definitely stay tuned with what we have coming. We have a lot of big plans. Thanks so much for having me on the show. Always a pleasure. Looking forward to next time. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Ryan.
Absolutely. Looking forward to having you back on the show as well. But that's going to do it for our show. Until then, I'm Ryan.
I'm Dan.
Peace.
Peace.